It might feel a little intimidating when you first install the plugin because there are a lot of options here, but I'm going to run over everything for you and you should feel much more comfortable using it at the end of this video. So I'm just going to go over the kind of outer interface first, and then we'll jump into more of like the meat and potatoes of the plugin. So up top, you have your account information. So you also have your license here. So these are where you can kind of manage your subscription, update your payment information, anything like that. Over here, we have the disabled indicator. So on the plugin, when the plugin is disabled, on the extension, it'll say dis, and then up here, you can also see whether it's enabled or disabled. Below that, we have this little envelope here. If you click on that, this is the version history. Since Squarespace continually makes updates to the platform, Michael has to continually update the extension as well. So here are all his release notes for previous versions. And down here at the bottom, you can see the current version that you're on. Down here at the bottom, you can click here and you can join the Slack channel for the extension. I definitely recommend doing this, because this is where you can get any questions answered, and you can also see other people's questions. So I definitely recommend read through some of the previous questions, because likely Michael has already answered it, and so you'll be able to find it here. Plus that just makes it easier on him. He doesn't have to continually answer questions that have already been asked. So do a little due diligence there in order to make it easier on him. But again, this is where you can ask questions and get answers. So going back to the extension, there's also this documentation and videos tab. So if you click on that, there are some videos on this page if you scroll down, and you can see some of the different features of the plugin. And then finally, there's this submit issue button, and this will just take you to your email provider to send them an email. But honestly, I don't recommend doing that. I recommend just, if you have a question, post it in the Slack channel, because that's where everyone seems to be the most active. So that's kind of the outer interface. In terms of the core of the plugin, it's split into two sides. So here we have the options and plugins. So there's all these different options you can enable. And then at the bottom, there's these 3 plugins that you can use as well. Now, I'm not going to be going over these plugins in this video because they're very robust plugins, and this is more of an overview, but they're going to have their own videos. So definitely check those out in the future if those have been created. But I will be going over all of the options on this side, and then all of the functions of the plugin on this side. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'll close out of these tabs. And this plugin works on both 7.1 and 7.0. So I have my personal site up here because I think it'll be helpful to kind of see the plugin used in context. And I also have a 7.1 site open here because I know, most new sites that people are starting are with 7.1. Okay, so let's go ahead and first let's talk about how to enable the plugin. So right now it's disabled. If you just click this button down here at the bottom, that will enable the extension. Then you can see the plugin turns green and it says enabled up here. So now we're good to go. We can now enable these options on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and enable all of the options. So I'll just click all of these on, and then we're going to run through what each one of them does. So after you select your options that you want to enable, go ahead and click update. Otherwise, they won't be enabled. So once you click update, the page will refresh. And that's one important thing to note, is that if you do select more options, also if you disable the plugin, it's going to cause a page refresh. So just make sure you're not editing the page, you've saved all that. And make sure you don't have anything unsaved in the custom CSS window, because you will lose it when the page reloads. So like, for example, if I just write some CSS here without saving it, if I update my options over here and click update, the page is going to refresh and I'm going to lose that CSS that was unsaved. So definitely something to be aware of. Just make sure everything is saved. And likewise, if you have multiple Squarespace sites open, make sure those Squarespace sites have everything saved as well, because when you do that update, it does cause a refresh on all open Squarespace tabs. So you can see this site refreshing as well. So a couple little things to be aware of there. Just make sure everything's saved and you're good to go. So now that I've enabled all of these options to the left, we'll go ahead and run through them. So the first is Enable File Manager. And in order to enable it, it tells you hold Shift, Alt, and F, and that'll open the file manager. Previously, we had to do the workaround where you'd have to like create a dummy link, and then click the gear icon, then go to File, and then upload your file, which is just the worst way to have to get there. So this is an awesome feature of this plugin. All you do is click over here in the left-hand panel, then Shift, Alt, F, boom, takes you right to the file manager. So I use this all the time on my personal site to upload plugins. I have a PDF on there, makes it really easy to upload those files. So the next option is enable content presets, and this just allows you to save your own preset block layouts and then quickly access them in the future. So an example of that is on this page, I've dragged in spacer blocks on either side of this text block. Then I have another spacer block, a full width image block, another spacer block, and then more spacer blocks on either side of a text block. So I've dragged a lot of different blocks onto this page. And if I wanted to quickly, redo this layout in the future on another site, for example, or maybe I want to reuse this layout on this site, it would take a long time for me to have to drag these blocks into this order again. And so what Content Presets does is it gives you this option here called Presets. And then you can click Actions over here, and you can save this as a preset. So for example, I could call this like About Page Layout 1. And we can put this in categories so it's easier to find in the future. So this could be About Page. And then you can choose if you want to share it or not. So this is a pretty cool feature. Anybody that has the extension plugin can share their plugins, and then you can insert other people's layouts into your site. So kind of a cool feature there. If you do want to make this layout available to other people, then you can click this button. If not, then just go ahead and click Save Preset. And if I go back to my presets, oops, I accidentally saved it twice. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one. Then you can see your preset library. So I already have one in here, and now it's just added it right here. So I can hide this panel, this presets panel, by clicking presets again. And if I ever wanted to do this layout on another page or on another part of the page, all you have to do is click presets and then click actions, and then you can insert it. So you can load it by either replacing the current content on the page, or if you uncheck that, it'll load the blocks at the bottom of whatever page you're on. So if I click load preset here, you'll see automatically below what we had previously, it's just appended that block layout really quickly and really easily. So this could be a pretty cool feature if you have some layouts that you want to reuse over and over again on, again, same site or different sites. You can save your presets and then quickly access them to create page layouts. So the next option is enable page injections, and this just shows a little injection icon if there's something in the page's header code injection. So for example, on this contact page, if we click the gear icon and then go to advanced, we can see that I've added some CSS here in the page header code injection, and now I get a little icon right here that just lets me know there's something in there. Next, we have the code editor search, and I absolutely love this feature. I'm going to hop over to my personal website to demonstrate this because I do have a lot of custom CSS on my personal site. So if we jump into the custom CSS window, if you want to look up something, we now have these editor shortcuts here, and you can see you can use Control F to start searching. You can use Control G to find the next. It gives you all these different options that you can use. The most helpful being Control F because you can search through the custom CSS panel. So if I want to find CSS that I've written for the footer, I can just put in a search query, and then it'll highlight the first thing that returns that search query. So now I can hit Control G and just filter through all the different results that are related to my footer CSS. So since I write a lot of CSS for Squarespace, this has been just the absolute best feature for me. And this also works in any of the page header code injection fields, the site-wide code injection fields, anywhere there's kind of like a code field, it'll add the search functionality. So the next option here is enable Nav Search. And when you have that enabled, when you go to the Pages panel, it'll give you a little search bar here. So you can quickly find pages in the Pages panel that you're looking for. So example, if I want to find my start here page, it immediately just brings it up down here. And then you can click the X and it'll remove your search and bring back all the pages. Now this is really helpful when you have a lot of pages because it just makes it so much easier to find a specific page that you're looking for. And finally, we have the Enable Nav toggle. And what this does is it allows you to bulk open and close all the folders on your site. So this is really helpful. Also, I use a lot of folders on my site to keep my pages organized. And when all the folders are open, it's really makes it a lot harder to like navigate all the content because there's just so much stuff to scroll through. So this is an awesome option. It just automatically closes all folders on the page. And then it makes everything like so much easier to navigate through. So that covers the left-hand side of the panel. Again, these last three are the plugins, and they're so robust that they need their own videos to go through, but that covers the options on the left-hand side here. Now we'll jump into the right-hand side of the panel, which is the core functionality of the plugin. So let's start over here in the right-hand panel by enabling UI tweaks. And UI tweaks are just changes to the interface to make it easier to use Squarespace, and it adds a little functionality as well. So let's go ahead and navigate to my 7.1 site. And right off the bat, the first change we can see is up here we have a shortcut menu. And basically you can just easily navigate to different pages on your site just with a click of a button, as opposed to having to navigate click by click through the menu. So it's a really helpful shortcut, makes it much faster to get to those different pages. We also in 7.1, we get these different tablet views now that you can view your site on tablet horizontal and tablet vertical devices. And of course you still have the mobile as well. And then one of the coolest changes is it allows us to use gallery blocks on 7.1. So as of right now, it's not possible to use gallery blocks on Squarespace 7.1. It sounds like it may be coming in the future, but as of right now, this is the only way that we can get gallery blocks back into Squarespace 7.1. And the great thing is this extension allows us to do that. So a really cool component of the extension there. So those are the main features for UI tweaks on 7.1. If I go to the 7.0 site, one of the other things that it does is if I go to my blog, it makes tagging and categorizing blog posts much easier. So if I edit this post, you can see normally there's like tiny little tags down here at the bottom, and it just rearranges everything and makes it much easier to manage tags and add new tags. Same for the categories. So it's just little changes like that that UI tweaks does that makes it much easier to use Squarespace. Next, let's go ahead and look at the extended editor. So I'm going to jump back to my 7.1 site as well, and then I'll go ahead and enable the extended editor. And it's confirming that I'm going to reload the page, and I'll confirm that since I have everything saved. I don't mind if my sites reload. And what the extended editor does is if we edit the page and add a markdown block, as we hover over, we now get this extended edit option as well as just our normal edit option. So if we click extended edit, it basically is just like this interface that pops up that allows you to do many different things that the normal editor can't allow you to do. So like tables, for example, being one of them. You definitely can't add a table, through a normal markdown block easily like this. So it's just adds this extra functionality, which makes it, it can be helpful at times to have these extra styling options. So that's one aspect of the extended editor. The other important thing to note is that if you're going to be copying a page from 7.0 to 7.1, which we're going to look at, you need to have the extended editor enabled. So that's just a component that we are going to look at in a little bit, but it's important to note. Okay, so I'm just going to discard those changes, click confirm. So that was those two extra features that come with it. Now let's look at the core function of the extension, I would say, is copying pages from one site to another. So let's first look at copying a page from one 7.1 site to another 7.1 site. So here I have one, and then I have another one over here. So let's just say I want to copy the home page. As you hover over these pages, you'll see a little arrow. And then as you hover over that arrow, it'll shoot out and it'll say get collection data. So that's how you copy the data for a page. So if I want to copy the home page to another 7.1 site, I'm going to hover over the arrow, click get collection data. You'll see it working down here a little bit, and then it'll say the data is available in the extension. So hit OK, and then up here it'll have a little data symbol on the extension, so that's how you know it's ready. So then I'll just navigate to my other 7.1 site, and I'll click the extension, and then it'll say up here it has this button create from data. So that's how I can then import that data into this site essentially. Now, if I just hit create from data, it'll add it to the main navigation. So if you hold shift, it'll add it to the not linked section. So that's what I recommend. Generally, you're going to want to hold shift just so it's not getting added to the main navigation, especially if the site is live, you wouldn't want that to happen. So I'm going to hold shift and click create in not linked. And then it says, do you want to add it to the not linked section? Click confirm. And then the plugin will work down here a little bit. It's just kind of like importing all of that data into this site. And then after it's done working, we'll see it added to the not linked section. So you can give it a different name if you want. I'll call this new home and I'll hit enter. Now, one thing that's been happening is it does add a blank section to the top of the page, but that's not a big deal. Just edit the page and delete that section. And now we have all of that content just immediately copied over onto this new site. So you can see it's a perfect replication of the homepage on the other site. So it's really handy for quickly copying pages between sites. You can copy blog pages between sites as well, which is really helpful. You can copy shop pages, but right now there are some limitations with the shop. You lose the variants, and also sometimes the thumbnails don't come through. So there is a little bit of work that has to be done if you're going to be copying shops between 7.1 sites, but pretty much every other type of page, you're good to go. And even though there are those limitations with the shop page, it's still way more efficient than building out everything from scratch. So this is like the best feature of the plugin. And you might wonder, like, why would I ever need to copy a 7.1 page to another 7.1 site? Well, one way that I use it is I had a client who had a live site and then they wanted to make a change. But they wanted to create a new sales page, but they wanted to see what the sales page was going to look like before we set it live. And so what I did is I just duplicated the site, which you can do through the Squarespace dashboard. And then I created the sales page. And once that got approved, then I was able to just copy the page over into the live site. So it's a good way to kind of like work as a sandbox site essentially, or like a testing site where you can do layouts, the client can approve it, and then you can port it over to the live site. So that's one way that I have used it in the past. Also, like you might just be like redoing your site and you've started a new trial and you just want to get content from your old site to your new site. So a couple different use cases there, but it's such a helpful aspect of the plugin. Now you can also copy pages from 7.0 to 7.1. And right now there's no path to upgrade from 7.0 to 7.1. You just have to start a new 7.1 site and then rebuild your entire site in 7.1. So I would never undertake that process without this plugin because you can just copy pages from 7.0 to 7.1. So as proof of that, I'm going to copy some of the pages from my 7.0 site to 7.1, and you'll be able to see some of the limitations that come with it. So one of the limitations is that on my homepage, I'm using an index gallery section, and they just don't have anything like that in 7.1. So you'll notice that that content doesn't come through, but the majority of the content is going to come through. One thing I want to reiterate quickly is that to transfer a page from 7.0 to 7.1, you have to have the extended editor enabled. So just make sure you do that before you transfer your page. Otherwise, the little window down here will just spin indefinitely, and it'll never upload your page. So again, make sure you have the extended editor enabled to transfer a page from a 7.0 site to a 7.1 site. So I'm going to go ahead and hover over start here and get the collection data. Going to hit OK. Now I'm going to come to my 7.1 site and going to click on the extension and then hold shift and create in the not linked section. I'll confirm that. and then the plugin's going to work, and we'll see the page appear in the not linked section. Okay, so there we go. Start here came over. You can see we get all the content from the first section. We get the text, but not the index gallery. Again, there's nothing like this in 7.1, so it can't pull over that content. It makes sense. So I would have to rebuild this section, probably with like poster blocks. We get this content coming through. We don't get any posts coming through, and that's because it's not attached to the blog. So let's go ahead and let's port over my blog. Now you can imagine this would be an absolute nightmare to try and rebuild an entire blog. You know, I have hundreds of posts in my blog, so I would pretty much never be able to manually like redo all of my blog posts. So now my blog is in the extension, so I can hold Shift and click Create from Data. And the cool thing is since there's different blog styles in 7.1, you can choose the different style that the style that you want your 7.1 blog to be. So for me, I just want to do the basic grid blog, and I'll hit confirm. And this is probably going to take a while because I have tons of blog posts and it has to pull in all of that data. So I'm just going to give it a minute and then we can catch back up when it's done. Okay, so it finished up in real time. That was about 2 minutes. Not bad for anywhere between 50 and 100 blog posts. I'm not exactly sure how many I have, but 2 minutes is pretty good for what otherwise would have taken me, probably a solid week of transferring over things manually. So, I could even see if you're a Squarespace web designer offering this as a service. I mean, people will gladly pay for your ability to do it quickly for them as opposed to them having to do it manually. So a really cool feature there. And now if we go back to the other homepage that I created that I pulled over from 7.0, we can now connect that summary block to our new blog that we just pulled over. So you could see, I'm not going to do everything, obviously. That would take me a while to set up, but you can see like how much easier this plugin makes transferring content from 7.0 to 7.1. I mean, really, it would save weeks of time as opposed to doing everything manually. So under the Create from Data, we also have this Copy Data and Clear Data button. I never use the Copy Data button, but if you have data in the extension that you want to clear, you can just click Clear Data. Easy enough. So below those, we have the Export JSON and Import JSON. So let's say, for example, I want to save this homepage. When you export it as JSON, it basically saves a file of all the data of the page. So let's go ahead and export this page as JSON. We have the data in our extension. I'll hit this Export JSON button, and it's going to save that page file. And then I can import it into the extension. So I'll clear the data, so we don't have any data in the extension. So that'll just show you that I am really getting the data from this file. I'll click Import JSON, and then we can select the page file from my downloads and hit Open. And now you can see we have new data in the extension. So it loaded the data from that file. And now we can hit Shift and then Create from Data and hit Confirm. And it's going to add that page to the not linked section. But we did it from a file rather than copying it from a live page. So that'll work through. And boom, there it is. So this is really helpful, and one way that I use it is I have a style guide that I sell as a template on my shop, and one way that I offer this to people is through the JSON files. So you can see it has all the different headings and paragraphs in every different section theme. So basically people can just set up their styles and they can see everything on one page, and then they can just start designing after setting up their style guide. So it's a really helpful design process. And the way that I sell it on my site is I sell it through these JSON files. So basically someone can just save these files to their computer and then import the files into their extension and then add them to their already existing sites. So for example, there's no style guide on this site. So what I could do is just download the forms and buttons page. So I'll go ahead and download that, and we can see the JSON is saved in my downloads now. So I'll go to this page and I'll hit import JSON. We'll select that forms and buttons file, hit open, and now I'll hit shift and I'll create it in the not linked section. Then I'll hit enter. So I'll just delete that first section again. And now you can see, so right off the bat, I have my style guide set up and all my different color themes. I have all of the different headings and paragraphs and buttons and everything. So that's the way that I use the exporting and importing JSON method. It's really helpful to just save pages as files and then easily upload those files to other sites. So it's kind of an alternative way of getting page data. As opposed to clicking the get collection data, you can upload it from files. So lastly, in this panel, we have this get injections button. And all that does is it just gets all the injections from the code injection field. So for example, if I want to get the injections from this site, so I have a lot of jQuery here in the footer, I'm going to click get injections and it says they're now available in the extension. And then let's say I want to add those injections to this 7.1 site. I'll click data and I'll hit save injections and it says injected successfully. So now I'll just go to the injections field and we can see all of those have been saved here. So that is the look at this incredibly powerful extension. Hopefully this video has made it more helpful, maybe a little bit less intimidating when you're first using the plugin. It's incredibly powerful, and I'm sure you're going to find it to be extremely helpful in your Squarespace web design business.